morning, Atlanta. Good morning, world. We are streaming around the world. I want to thank all of our media partners and those who showed up. CNBC, Bloomberg, LinkedIn, Roland Martin, all iHeart Radio, all of the hero and sheroes who are podcasters and bloggers and social media advocates who are making smart sexy again. Quincy Jones says it takes 20 years to change a culture. In the last 20 years, it could be easily argued we made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it. And now it's time to make smart sexy again. One thing I love about this era is everybody wants to know how everything works. And we're going to make a case for optimism during this forum the next 2 days. And last night was off the chain. By the way, for those who are not black, that means it was a great evening. Bill doesn't need me to translate.
Let it go.
No. I made Bill Rogers an honorary black man a few years ago. Look, he's turning pink. Look. It's a case for optimism because rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's a scientific fact. And you can't grow without constructive friction. And Bill Rogers and I have a very special relationship. That relationship started with a mutual friend named Jim Wells, who was the former chairman and CEO of what was then called SunTrust.
Right.
And Jim is just a special human being, but Jim knew he was retiring, and so he set up a lunch for me with Bill. And it's the only lunch I can remember in my recent life where my lunch guest said absolutely nothing. Bill sat there as if he was without words for an hour and a half, and he was checking me out.
Or it's also not hard to do with you, John.
Okay, that was good. Okay, I'll give you that one. But if you want to go one for one,
No, we're done.
And so I believe, now we never had this conversation. I believe you were checking me out, making sure I was real, which you had, I think, not every right to do. You were smart to do. You're thinking about investing in some real money. You know, this business is not personal. Stop taking it personal.
Yeah.
Stop being emotional about business. Any decision you make emotionally, I guarantee you will be the wrong decision. I say that capitalism is a gladiator sport. You know, whoever survives is who wins. And so we were in this meeting, and my job was to communicate excellence and that we had a business plan. It wasn't just rhetoric and me running my mouth. And so Bill becomes CEO, and I come to him with this idea because we had a donor partner who dropped out. They were having some financial problems themselves, and we had 9 locations around the country for Hope Inside. Sorry, it was a Hope Center back then. They were very expensive, big box locations, not sustainable, by the way. They pulled out of their partnership, which meant that most of my locations overnight went out of business. And so my team was freaking out. I thought it was a gift because I knew that this was not sustainable. It forced me to reimagine my business plan. It forced me to have constructive friction. I said, what location is self-sustainable? It happened to be a location in California, and Bank of the West. And we were co-located, and they were paying my rent and all that stuff, and I was the software inside. So I went to Bill, and I said, Bill, I have an idea. I'd like to put a Hope inside of a bank branch, yours. There's never been, just to give you some texture here, there's never been a nonprofit allowed to operate inside of an FDIC-insured bank branch in all of America's history. Keep this in mind. And by the way, thank the FDIC, Mark Pierce, and thank the regulators for allowing this. It would never, it wouldn't have happened with the FFIEC not allowing it. Anyway, so I come to Bill with this big vision, and people say that bankers are not creative and not innovative. I come to him with this big vision, and he says, okay. But don't ask me for any money. Remember this?
Like it was yesterday.
Don't ask me for any money. Let me do it my way. Why did you say that?
Well, you know, John, I think the point was we were trying something new.
Yep.
We were going to do something no one else had done before.
Yep.
It's totally aligned with our purpose now to inspire and build better lives in communities. So it's sort of like right in the sweet spot. But if we started with the money thing, then we were going to define it right out of the chute.
Yep.
And what we need
I wanted your cash.
what we needed to do is just like start. And we just needed to start.
Start.
And you know what we said to you is, we'll support it. We'll get it going. We'll be the inspiration for this.
Yep.
And you know if you just start with cash, that's not the physical capital. You know, we wanted our teams and your teams to be committed. Let's get going. Let's understand. Let's make this happen. And look, let's talk about fast forward. So that was fun.
But hold on. I also think that in all fairness, you also were taking me seriously.
100%.
It was like, I'm not just going to give you a grant, throw some money at you. If you want to do this, John, I'm translating now. Do it right.
Yeah.
You've proven that you're a real guy. You passed the underwrite, you passed the vetting. Okay, the business idea makes some sense. Don't ask me for money. Ask me for talent, expertise, infrastructure, systems. I'm putting my banking system at risk here. Let's do it right. Am I getting this right?
100%.
Okay. So.
No, and I think that's the point, and it's sort of funny how philanthropy has really gone sort of full circle in it. So it sort of has started with, I really want to know, I want the details, I want everything, I want the commitments, I want to know what we're going to do, I want the 6-month plan, the year plan, I want the return on investment, I want all that. To now it's gone full circle as no, I support you. Philanthropy has gone all the way around, but we started with that. Hey, we're going to do something together. We got to have all the commitments. We got to make all this work. But fast forward to that literally, early meeting where I didn't say anything. I'll accept that. And fast forward. So from that one location.
I thought you were not a nice person back then, by the way.
That's okay.
He has no self-esteem problem.
No.
Bill is like cool. Like he is like smooth. Bill, I have a man crush on Bill Rogers. He's a cool dude.
We're gonna make this more uncomfortable. Is that what we're gonna do? But the fast forward, because what we did say to you, and if you remember from this conversation, said we want to be the inspiration.
Yep.
That's what we want to be.
Yep.
So maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, but we want to be the inspiration. We want to do something nobody else has done. We want to do something, to your point earlier, that can scale and be duplicated.
Yep.
So to do it just in one branch, or to do it in 2 branches,
rinse and repeat,
or just to do it with Truist actually wasn't going to be enough. I mean, of course, and so. We talked about this.
And by the way, you actually your team went out to another bank. You flew across the country to review what another bank was doing, because you knew that this had to work for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is about building a better community and building better lives. And you can't do it alone. You can't that's not part of it. I mean, of course, we're competitive, by the way. We want to win. We want to get all the accounts, so there's no doubt about that.
You know who that was? The Truist crew.
I brought my own team, just to be clear. I mean,
a bank with his own cheering section.
I have the distinct pleasure of taking credit for their work, so it's nice that they, will at least let me acknowledge that.
Exactly.
And do that for them. But now fast forward. So we started with that original premise, let us be an inspiration, let's work together, let's create it. And by the way, we've had a lot of back and forth, right? So
and you turned me down for some stuff, which I still resent.
Okay, well, let's fast forward. So we now sit in scale, in physical, and then we also created this network concept, right? So we have a physical location, and then we have a hub and spoke, concept. So now we're in 850 locations. So think about that.
So to give you guys some context for this, and I want to back up for a minute, but you're the 6th largest bank in America?
Sure.
5th, well, no, what are you?
No, we're right there. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
5th, 6th largest bank in America. Big deal. In the largest economy in the world. It's a big deal. It's a huge institution. And they've got 2,000 branches.
Yep.
And they're committing. We want our communities to take we want business interests to take us seriously. They've got 2,000 branches. They're committing to put us in 1,000 of their 2,000 branches. Which is getting the bank, that's this bank and others.
Yep.
And I want to acknowledge Brian Jordan at First Horizon and Synovus and Regions and all the other banks who U.S. Bank, and also who took their piece and made this work in their way, Bank of America, et cetera, et cetera. But let's now reverse the tape back to a couple years after we tried the test. I came to you thinking maybe we can go from 1 to 3. I think I wanted 10 or 20. What did you say to me at that meeting? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, that's where we started to scale.
Yeah.
That's where we said, let's really think about this completely differently. Let's think about this, complete. And then, like today, John, so we talk about that. That's really interesting that we're in all those branches. But the impact, I mean, like year to date, we've done 50,000 financial interactions with people who came into our bank, and instead of saying no, we said how. I mean, what a powerful combination that is. And we did that because of this partnership. And then the ripple effect of those 50,000, the impact on their families, the impact on, I kept my financial plan in place. I improved my credit score, all the things that you talk about. That's the impact. I mean, it's interesting we're in all these physical facilities and all that, but the impact that we're having, those connections that we're making, it is so, so powerful. And the ripple effect in those communities is just a great source of pride for us.
So what I'm hearing you saying is, from a business perspective, the model helped you, the bank, get out of the no business, which you didn't want to be in. The bank doesn't make any money if you have to say no all the time.
Well, nobody wants to be in the no business.
No one wants to be in the no business. You want to. So the model, by getting the credit score up 54 points in 6 months, 120 points over 24 months, the debt down for somebody making $48,000 to $50,000, $3,800, savings up on average $1,500. That package of activity gets you out of the no business and back into the yes business.
Exactly.
Turns a black or a brown customer or a struggling white customer into a green customer. In other words, somebody who's economically viable. It allows the bank to say yes. Am I got that right?
100%. And then also, the thing that we did beside this as we were creating this, and then we had to create products to accept those clients as well, right? So we've done a lot of innovation around something called Truist One. We've done innovation to create opportunities for those clients to come into our system. So this partnership just works, it's a circle, it's a flywheel, and that's how you try to create it. So it's not only the innovation, and you guys were very helpful in us in our product design, sort of think about, okay, well, how do we make sure that we're increasing the aperture for more people to come into the banking system? What are we doing to do that? And I think that's the beauty of all this. The locations, the physical part, all that's interesting, but the lives that we're touching, the generational changes that we're making, I think is really powerful and something to be proud of.
You're creating a small business owner, 1MBB, creating entrepreneurs,
100%.
creating homeowners, creating stakeholders, that single mother who can have pride that she's got a roof over her children's head because she has access to capital.
And it's generational. So
yes.
They can see that.
Yeah.
That changes the whole cycle.
Generational wealth.
100%.
I will often, the barbershop conversation, sometimes in our community, you go and get a haircut, and there's always some smart person in there, smart meaning, sassy, say, John, talking about all this banking stuff, I want me to become a homeowner. We don't own the home. The bank owns a home. If you don't pay, if you borrow some money from me and you don't pay, I'm gonna own your home. But if you pay for the mortgage, no different than if you pay for rent, but if you pay for the mortgage, you're gonna get the appreciation, the equity, you're gonna get the value of the depreciation, tax benefits, you're gonna get an average mortgage, 30-year mortgage, 15, 20 years of that's gonna be interest. You're gonna be a write-off on your tax returns, so you're paying money on a mortgage interest, which you then take off of your taxes, and I'm not your tax man, but generally get it back on a tax refund. That's why the tax code works for home ownership.
Right.
It also compounds on your sleep. The equity allows you to build generational wealth. And this is why I keep telling people the best way to build wealth in America is home ownership. And and by getting you out of the no business into the yes business, the bank is allowed, finally, in the underserved neighborhoods to say yes.
No doubt. And to your point, I mean, home ownership has been generationally the biggest way to build wealth. And too many people are closed out of that opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's the aperture. You've got to open up that aperture. If it's the primary way to build wealth, you want to have everybody to have that opportunity, every community.
Yeah, the mainstream homeownership rate is about, last time I checked, 75%. It's the mid-70s. The black homeownership rate is 41 to 43. That gap, that 30-point gap, is generational wealth. And you need to buy a home. My philosophy, my mother did this. Juanita Smith, God rest her soul, she had an award, gave her an award, thank God, on this stage last year. She's looking down on us now. My mother, on an hourly job, Bill, Juanita Smith, on an hourly job, McDonnell Douglas aircraft, Boeing aircraft, went and bought a home, 15502 South Fraley, Compton, California, bought a home, raised us in that home. I remember, on the side of you go through in the kitchen and you mark it off on the side of the door how big the kids are, and that number, you can only do that when you own the house, right?
Exactly.
And because you do it in my rental house, we don't have a problem. But she owned the home, and we knew that it was our house. And we had lost the home before that because my mom and dad couldn't agree on financial literacy. My dad could make it, but couldn't keep it. Brilliant guy, but confused hustle with business, confused making money with building wealth. And Mom did that 7 times. And when she passed on, she had $1 million net worth at an hourly job. So everybody can do this. Everybody can do this. So let's pivot back for a minute. I do want to touch for a moment on why do you how do you become a leader like you that, yes, hardcore businessman, you're going to hit your numbers, but you also give a dang. I want to get to that because it's in your mom and your dad and your grandpa story. But before that, I want to get back to the money. I actually came to you after the results were in. I came to you, actually asked you for some money. I said, look, this has been great, but you're rich, I'm broke, and I need some money. And you said apply, so we applied for a grant, and we got a grant for $1 million. And back then, that was a huge grant for us, and we really needed it. And so you made an appointment for me to come and get the check. Do you remember this?
Yes.
I gotta take some water first. So I go into Bill's office. And I'm ready. I have a dream. I got my whole thing. We're gonna do this community, and we're gonna lay this out. And Bill, we're going from coast to coast. And Bill says, John, take yes for an answer, and take this check and leave before I take it back. And I learned another lesson. Don't sell past the close.
That's a good lesson for all of us, yes.
Some of us just talk too much. We just talk too much. Like, just shut up, right? Stop selling. I've had to tell myself that. Like, stop selling. Just present yourself. By the way, when you're here, no transactions, no business, no selling, no networking. Build relationships.
Right.
Be genuinely interested in who you're talking to and whose you're talking to. Understand their story. Understand their backstory. Understand they're a human being. And they want to be loved just like you. And so you gave me that check, and I left. I mean, I cashed it. And then we grew this relationship. And as I got into and then you in the merger, you could have jettisoned this. I mean, you went from SunTrust to Truist, and I didn't want to bother you. You were on my board, but I knew that you were trying to arrange all this stuff. So I got to know Dante, and I got to know other people in your office, and I knew I had to work with your team. Again, another lesson for everybody: nothing good comes easy. Non-love. So evil exists, but it's very rare. Most people are just lazy. intellectually lazy, spiritually lazy, financially lazy. Help me out. What was it? Emotionally lazy. Was it?
Just lazy.
Just lazy. Roland Martin said, just. They don't want to do the work. They want somebody else to do it for them. And the third, so there's human evil, there's laziness, and there's healing. And healing requires work. Love is work. Whatever you love is going to drive you crazy. You love your children. You'll want to throttle them twice a year. I mean, real talk. Families, you love your husband, your wife. I mean, but they will frustrate you. Whatever and whoever or whatever your job you love will drive you crazy. I drove Bill crazy. Bill drove me crazy a little bit. But it was a real relationship, and I understood I had to change strategies, approaches at different times when you had different stresses on you.
Right.
Get to know your team, make sure your team was bought into the vision, and bring it back to you when it was an easy yes.
Well, that's also the key. I mean, John, you talk about this all the time, the concept of relational capital.
Yeah.
And that applies throughout the organization. I mean, what I love about us is, you know, you and I have a great relationship and we'll do stuff together, but for us just to say it is interesting. Our teams are connected all the way through.
That's right.
That's where it's happening.
That's right.
I mean, as much as you and I might not want to admit that, that's where it's all happening.
Yeah.
And that's where those connections are just critical. And they're thinking about the next idea, the next creative solution. I mean, so, you know, remember when we first started investing, one of the things we said, back to your, is let's invest in the infrastructure.
Yes.
Because we've got the trucks way ahead of the gas lines, you know, and we got to invest in the infrastructure. So one of our quote unquote conditions, because we'd had this conversation, was let's build an infrastructure.
That's right.
So we want to support that. We want to
You
make
actually
sure
funded part of the infrastructure.
exactly. I mean, that was key, and that's part of just, you know, using not only, you know, our funding, but also just using how we'd work together and have a team that understands that and wants to commit talent to that process.
And you've elevated diversity and inclusion within the institution. The president of your foundation is a person of color. The person on your C-suite who runs the banking network, I think one of the highest ranking banking executives, Dante, in the country, is a person of color. Women, you've elevated. So you walked your talk. I remember one day you called me. It was a really strange conversation. You said, John, I just found out our institution has a history with slavery, going back 150 years or something. We got to acknowledge it. I thought you were crazy. I mean, it was beautiful, but I thought I'd be calling you, not you calling me. But you wanted to get it out there. You were like, hey, I didn't do that, but I can do something now to change that. Right? You're like a Martian. Where did you come from? Tell me very quickly about your background. Why do you care so much?
You know, I came from a nice humble background. My father's father passed away when he was 10 years old. You know, so they went. I got a chance recently, my father passed away, and sort of looking at the picture books, and they were doing great. It was just interesting to look at the pictures. They were doing great. My grandfather ran a drugstore, very successful, and then he passed away. No buyer-seller agreement. You know, then all of a sudden, you know, family's taking in boarders. And so grandmother goes back to work, and you know, and then there were no pictures. There was no picture of the beach. There was no picture of the holidays, and so it was just a reminder of, you know, things can change, and in a second, and that's part of that concept of, you know, wanting families to be prepared, wanting families to understand what they need to do. What is insurance? What are buy-sell agreements? What is life insurance? How do we prepare for all those things? Owning your home, all the stuff that has to come through. So it was just listening and watching my father, and then watching, you know, how hard they both worked, you know, to achieve the American dream. And that's what we want for everybody. I mean, everybody deserves that opportunity. Yeah. And so just having seen it and experienced it in my family, you know, just was a commitment to want to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity from every walk of life. I had an opportunity. I've lived out of this country, so I've been a minority. You know, I've lived, you know, in a place where I didn't speak the language. I wasn't, you know, indigenous to that. So I've seen life from a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's just a critical foundation.
what I want to, you're such a low key, cool guy, and when you're in banking, you got to be steady. I really did want to have people understand your humanity. I wanted them to understand that there's a person inside of this very well maintained infrastructure and systems that's running this huge institution that cares. And the human being that always picks up the phone when I call, sometimes you call me, and the care you have when George Floyd was murdered, the care you had when somebody's being mistreated, the frustration you have with somebody you don't know who does not have access to opportunity, that has to come from your background when your family did not get the phone call returned. Mm-hmm. I love you, man.
Well, I love you too, buddy.
Thank you. You're a good guy.